In a world that constantly demands our attention, have you ever felt the urge to step back, to become unavailable, not out of indifference, but as a journey towards self-discovery? This is not about isolation. It's about introspection. It's about shedding the roles we've adopted for others and embracing the essence of who we truly are. We often think being available is a form of love, a commitment to connection. But what if being too available makes us lose ourselves in the noise of others? Becoming unavailable isn't selfish. It's sacred. It is choosing your soul over social expectations, your silence over superficial stimulation. When we step back, we allow ourselves the gift of clarity. We begin to recognize the ways in which our attention has been hijacked. Whether it's through endless scrolling, people-pleasing, or the hustle culture we glorify, our energy becomes fragmented. And in that fragmentation, our identity begins to blur. The masks we wear. From the moment we step into society, into classrooms, into family gatherings, into friend circles, we are handed subtle scripts, identities, roles. We're labeled before we even understand what labels are. The quiet child, the golden student, the responsible one, the funny one, the one who never causes trouble. They sound harmless, even complimentary. But over time, they begin to shape how we see ourselves. These identities become masks we wear, not out of deception, but out of survival, out of the very human need to belong. We learn quickly, almost instinctively, that certain expressions of who we are bring praise, while others bring disapproval, that our silence is more welcome than our honesty, that our obedience earns love more easily than our resistance, that pleasing others often means abandoning ourselves. So we start editing. We shrink our true selves to fit into the expectations around us. We learn to read a room before we speak, to adjust our behavior depending on who's watching. We laugh at jokes we don't find funny. We nod when we disagree. We say yes when we mean no. We become masters of adaptation, but beginners in authenticity. And yet, beneath all the performing, beneath the surface-level smiles and rehearsed reactions, there's a quiet voice. It doesn't shout. It doesn't interrupt. It waits. This voice belongs to your truest self, not the self shaped by approval or fear, not the version of you built to please, to impress, to be accepted, just you, raw, real, whole, real. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The most common form of despair is not being who you are." And perhaps the tragedy is that many of us live in that kind of despair without even realizing it. Because we're praised for how well we wear our masks. We're rewarded for being reliable, agreeable, digestible, for fitting into other people's comfort zones. So we carry the weight of expectations like invisible armor. But the longer we wear these masks, the heavier they become. They start to stick. Until one day, we look in the mirror and we no longer recognize who's looking back. We wonder, who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when no one is watching? We forget there was ever a face beneath the mask, and we confuse the act for our identity. But what if the real you has been waiting all along? What if becoming yourself starts by unlearning who you were told to be? The courage to disconnect. To begin the process of truly becoming yourself, you must first step away from the stage. You must remove yourself from the performance of who you've been conditioned to be. You must become unavailable, not as an act of rebellion, but as an act of reverence. The world thrives on your accessibility. Every ping, every buzz, every blinking screen, it's all a system of subtle demands. Be here. Answer now. Respond quickly. Show up. Stay relevant. Stay updated. We are taught that our worth is tied to our presence in the outer world, how visible we are, how responsive, how engaged. But in the noise of constant availability, we become strangers to the one place that matters most, our inner world. We become present to everything except ourselves. To disconnect in this world is almost radical. It takes courage to step away when everything screams for your attention. It takes strength to sit in silence while the world races forward. But mostly, it takes love. A deep, nurturing kind of love that says, I matter enough to come home to myself. To disconnect is not to escape. It's to return. Return to your breath, to your thoughts, unfiltered by opinion, to your desires, untouched by expectation, to your values, unshaped by the crowd. When you remove the external noise, something else begins to rise, a quieter frequency, a whisper from within that was always there, just drowned out by the volume of life. And that whisper begins to ask questions. Who am I when no one needs anything from me? What do I actually love? Not perform to love, not pretend to love, but deeply love. What beliefs feel like home in my bones, not just what I was told to believe? Where do I come alive, not to impress, but to exist fully? These are not easy questions, but they are the right ones. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But your why, your deepest reason for being, won't come through another status update. It won't be found in applause or approval. It arrives in stillness, in solitude, in sacred unavailability. Becoming unavailable is not vanishing. It is the opposite. It is reappearing. This time, not as a product of the world, but as a reflection of truth. So step back, not to run, but to return, not to disappear, but to finally be seen by the one person who's waited the longest, you. The journey inward. The journey inward is unlike any other path you'll walk. There are no road signs, no GPS to guide you, no itinerary marked by milestones of success or applause. You are both the cartographer and the terrain. To explore your inner world is to become an explorer of uncharted territory. And like all explorers, you will get lost. You will stumble upon caves of forgotten memories, rivers of buried pain, and the fossils of long-lost dreams. There may be darkness, yes. Moments when you feel alone with thoughts you've spent years avoiding. But stay. Breathe. Look closer. Because in that darkness, a light begins to glow. Not from the outside, not handed to you by someone else's validation, but a light born from clarity. And that light has a name, self-awareness. As Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Awakening isn't easy. It doesn't come with soft music and poetic revelations. It arrives like a tremor, shaking the foundations of everything you thought was true. It will ask uncomfortable questions. Why do I do what I do? Whose approval have I been chasing? What am I avoiding with my busyness, my relationships, my distractions? You begin to realize that many of the things you've chased weren't truly yours. Careers pursued not out of passion, but pressure. Relationships maintained not out of love, but fear of loneliness. Beliefs held not from conviction, but from the fear of not fitting in. And yet, beneath all those layers, beneath the masks and borrowed identities, someone is waiting. Someone you've ignored, but who has never given up on you. The real you. The soulful, sensitive, curious, creative, wild, wondering, untamed you. The version of you that existed before the world told you who to be. Before the fear, before the performance. This version of you doesn't speak in loud commands. It whispers, it paints. It writes poems in the quiet. It dances when no one is watching. It breathes differently, freely. To find this self, you must walk into yourself without flinching. You must meet every shadow, every wound, every beautiful scar. And no, it's not a one-time thing. The journey inward is not a weekend retreat or a temporary reset. It's a lifelong pilgrimage. One step at a time, each step revealing something new. A truth, a fear, a forgotten joy, a buried dream. And with every step, you come closer, not to who the world wants you to be, but to who you've always been. Embracing authenticity. Authenticity is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's not about being blunt, loud, or different for the sake of standing out. Authenticity is a commitment to truth. It's the deep and often difficult act of telling the truth. About how you feel, what you want, what hurts, what heals, and what no longer fits. It's choosing paths that make sense to your spirit, even when they confuse others. It's saying no, even when people expect a yes. And it's saying yes to what your heart longs for, even if it's inconvenient, misunderstood, or unconventional. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." That means this life, your essence, is not something handed to you. It's something crafted through the choices you make each day. Not by imitation, but by inner alignment. Not by performance, but by presence. Authenticity, in its purest form, is freedom, but it's rare, because it's vulnerable. To live authentically, you must let go of being liked by everyone. You must give up the comfort of always being understood. You must be willing to disappoint others rather than betray yourself. And that's no easy task, because approval feels safe. Fitting in feels warm. But those comforts come at a cost, the cost of disconnection from your own soul. When you choose authenticity, what you gain is integrity, not just moral integrity, but soul integrity. You begin to trust yourself because you're no longer editing your truth to suit the crowd. You begin to belong to yourself because you're no longer asking for permission to be who you are. The authentic life may not always be comfortable, but it will always be real. And in that reality, you will find something far greater than approval. You will find meaning. The power of solitude. There is a profound and often overlooked wisdom in solitude. It is in solitude that the most meaningful, most honest conversations of your life will take place, not with others, but with yourself. In solitude, the noise of the world fades, and in that silence, your inner world begins to speak. Your fears whisper, but so do your dreams. Your insecurities rise to the surface, but so do your hidden strengths, your past echoes. But so does the quiet hum of who you're becoming. To sit alone, without distraction, without noise, without escape, is one of the bravest things a person can do. It is a declaration that says, I am ready to meet myself. At first, it feels impossible. The mind resists. It rebels against the stillness, reaching for stimulation. It throws memories at you like stones. It brings discomfort to the surface, hoping you'll run, because the mind has been trained to avoid quiet. But with time, with patience, the silence shifts, it softens, and suddenly it becomes soothing. It becomes safe. It becomes a teacher. As Blaise Pascal once observed, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And he was right. Because in solitude, there's no one to impress, no one to agree with, no one to perform for. There's no crowd to mirror you, no spotlight to hide under, just you. And in that moment, when you drop all the masks and sit with your raw, unfiltered self, something beautiful begins to happen. The ego loosens its grip, and your soul begins to lead. Solitude is not emptiness, it's fullness without noise. It's not disconnection, it's reconnection to your intuition, to your purpose, to your presence. In solitude, clarity blooms. You begin to see not only what you want, but why you want it. You begin to sense the difference between desires born from your heart and those born from conditioning. Answers rise. not because you've chased them, but because you finally stopped running from them. And in that moment, when you drop all the masks and sit with your raw, unfiltered self, something beautiful begins to happen. The ego loosens its grip, and your soul begins to lead. Solitude is not emptiness, it's fullness without noise. It's not disconnection, it's reconnection to your intuition, to your purpose, to your presence. In solitude, clarity blooms. You begin to see not only what you want, but why you want it. You begin to sense the difference between desires born from your heart and those born from conditioning. Answers rise, not because you've chased them, but because you finally stopped running from them. Reintegrating with the world. After the sacred journey of stepping away, of becoming unavailable so you could remember yourself, there comes a time to return. But this return is not a rewind. It's not about stepping back into old roles or reclaiming familiar masks. This return is a rebirth. You re-enter the world, but you are not the same. You are no longer a shapeshifter, adapting to fit expectations. You're no longer a mirror, reflecting what others want to see. You've met yourself. You've sat with your silence. You've walked through your own inner fire. And now, you return not as a performer, but as a presence. Reintegration is not about discarding solitude. It's about carrying what you found there into your everyday life. It's living your inner truth outwardly. You begin to show up at work, in love, in conversations, as the you that no longer needs to hide. Your relationships shift. Some deepen because authenticity breeds intimacy. Some fade because they were rooted in versions of you that no longer exist. But every relationship becomes more honest, more whole, more real. You learn the quiet strength of speaking clearly. You say no without guilt. You say yes without fear. You no longer stretch yourself thin to be enough. You no longer shrink yourself to be accepted. You no longer betray your peace to earn belonging. As Rumi beautifully said, "Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure." The pain of pretending, the ache of people-pleasing, the exhaustion of always performing. Once acknowledged, it transforms. It becomes your teacher. And one day, it becomes your freedom. When you return to the world with truth stitched into your spirit, you become a quiet revolution. You don't demand others change, but your presence gives them silent permission to be real, to be soft, to be honest, to be human. You become a lighthouse, not loud, not forceful, but steady, a signal to others that they too can stop pretending, that they too can come home to themselves. The practice of authentic living. Living authentically is not a single breakthrough. It is not a one-time awakening. It is a daily devotion, an ongoing, imperfect, beautiful practice. It begins in the small decisions. Choosing rest over hustle, even when the world tells you your worth is measured by your productivity. Speaking honestly, even when your voice trembles and silence would be more comfortable. Logging off when your mind feels overstimulated and your spirit feels scattered. Creating art, music, poetry, not for an audience, not for applause, but for the nourishment of your soul. These moments may seem minor to the outside world, but to your inner world, they are seismic. They are the quiet ways you return home to yourself. They are the daily rituals of self-respect. Do you begin to notice that your body is always speaking to you, that your emotions are sacred messengers, that your energy holds truth long before your mind catches up? And so, you listen more deeply. You rest when you're tired, not when you've earned it. You allow tears when they come without shame or apology. You protect your peace even when others don't understand. You start to see that self-care is not indulgent, it's essential. It is not a luxury. It is a discipline, a spiritual discipline that keeps you rooted in who you really are. But authenticity doesn't mean perfection. you will still fall into old patterns. You will still say yes when you mean no. You will still occasionally reach for the mask when fear enters the room. But here's the difference now. You notice. You feel the discomfort more quickly. You recognize when you've abandoned yourself, and you begin the gentle work of returning. That's the heart of this practice. Not getting it right all the time, but committing to come back. Again and again, you return. To honesty, to presence, to self-respect, to love, not the kind you perform for, but the kind you embody. As the poet Mary Oliver once asked, tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Let your answer be this: I will live it as myself. Not perfectly, but truthfully. Not loudly, but fully. Every single day I will practice being real, and in doing so, I will finally be free. The ongoing journey. To become unavailable is not to reject the world. It is to reclaim yourself. It is to declare, I matter. My soul matters. My truth matters. And from that place, you do not withdraw from life. You re-enter it with intention, clarity, and love. You no longer live from habit, but from alignment. You no longer live from fear, but from purpose. As Oscar Wilde wisely noted, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. So let today be the beginning of choosing yourself, of listening deeper, of honoring the silence, of living not to be accepted, but to be whole. And when people say, you've changed, smile gently, because you have. You've changed by coming home to yourself. Keep choosing you, over and over. That is the revolution. If this message spoke to your soul, consider subscribing to this channel. Share this with someone who might be searching for themselves too, and join us in our next video. Until then, take a breath, step back, become unavailable, and listen to the voice within.